Hello, everyone. I'm Simona.
And I'm Amy.
So, this afternoon, Amy and I will be talking about the Netflix original series, Derry Girls. So, Derry Girls is a British show created and written by Lisa McGee. The series is set in the Northern Irish town of Londonderry during the latter end of the Troubles, and it focuses on the lives of 6 teenagers, 5 girls and 1 boy, as they navigate the hurdles of adolescence, religious intolerance and conflict, and academic pressures. So I loved this series. I binged the first 6 episodes of season 1 in one sitting. And I also watched season 2 in one sitting. That's how much I really enjoyed this show.
Yeah, I loved it. I actually am not finished with season 2. And I started, like, not only did I watch all of season 1 and part of season 2, I started like making my husband watch it like from the beginning because I mean, we got to just talk about the pilot. Oh my God, I don't think seen a pilot so well done. It was fantastic. Like in terms of introducing the characters, introducing the troubles through the foil of James, and like how everybody thinks like all of this stuff is really normal that they're dealing with. Um and just the culmination was fantastic. I just watched it and cried.
No, it's one of those shows that pulled me in immediately, especially as you mentioned the opening episode where you hear the narration and then it breaks to where it's Orla reading Aaron's diary and like Aaron waking up and knows he's like, stop reading my diary. And Orla's character is probably one of my favorites.
Mine too.
Because she seems so unfazed by like life in general. It's like she's living her best life. She's doing her thing. She's definitely one of the oddballs of the group. I mean, they're all weird in their own way, but she really takes the cake. But that's why I really love her, because she's her own person. She's embraced who she is, and she just like marches forward and doesn't really care.
Yeah, I mean, I really do want to explore the character of Orla, other ones too, but I really got the feeling that Orla was still like a kid. Like she wasn't quite she hadn't, made that leap that everyone else at that age had. And you see her like kind of behind everybody doing airplanes and
Mm-hmm.
all of all of
Mm-hmm.
those like great things that she does are very childlike. And I love that she's included. I love that they don't ostracize her, or they don't ostracize James, um,
Mm-hmm.
which definitely would have made me, if they were constantly like ditching them and stuff like that, I would not feel the same way as I do.
No, definitely. And what I also appreciated about this show is that it addresses these very serious themes, but you never feel weighed down or bogged down by what's occurring, because there's a lot of humor in the show. And especially since I believe that in many ways we're experiencing things through the eyes of these teenagers, their concerns to an extent seem to be more like teen concerns, trying to establish themselves as individuals, breaking free of their parents, um, sort of the academic pressures that they face. And they are very much aware of the conflict that is going on, but it just never weighs you down. You don't feel like this is going to be such a depressing show to get through.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so the troubles is a big part. It's in the background, but it rears its head every once in a while in little ways. And in the final episode of season 1, there's that moment where I loved the juxtaposition between the girls joining Orla on stage as she's doing her aerobics routine. So So I didn't really understand her routine, but anyway, so they
Well,
join her on the
there was
stage.
nothing. She had a skill.
Exactly.
She had a skill. She had promise, and that promise was in step aerobics, and she was going to share that with the world.
Exactly. And she does
And
an
like,
awesome job of it.
right. And her mom, like, her mom, I can't remember the mom's name. Um, the the mom, Orla's mom, is
Yeah.
Mary, Erin's mom's sister, and apparently she's not going to get a name during this episode because we can't remember. But she is way, like, she's a very happy, shallow person, and
Hmm.
she, and it's hard because you don't know if where that shallowness comes from, because they're not that old, that their teenage years weren't spent in the middle of this too.
Exactly. Yeah. Because I
So
was trying to do some quick research on the Troubles,
mhm.
and there's arguments about when it started, but sort of for official sake, it's
1680 something.
yeah. So we'll officially say from like 1966 to like 1998, 96,
Mhm.
98. So that's the period of the
Right.
Troubles. So yeah, so they definitely were teens during that period. They definitely experienced things. And you see that in the way that Erin's mom responds to things, like when there's that episode where the orange, oh, I wrote them.
The orange men, the Protestant,
Yes, the Orange Order, they're
yeah.
having their I guess it's their annual march, and her fear, like she wants to get the family out of there because she's convinced that something is going to happen to them.
Mhm.
So she definitely has some form of, I don't want to say PTSD, but she's definitely aware of what could happen. And it's true, like her sister, I mean, I like the sister's character too. I mean, yes, she does come across as a very shallow person. Um, but I
Yeah.
think that I'm hoping the show will explore that she has some depth to her, that she has some insight, that she's not just concerned
Yeah.
about her hair and her makeup. You
Well, I
know,
mean, that could be it, it's really easy to figure that that's a trauma response. And I
mhm,
would say this is, I would call this trauma. It's trauma means different things to different people, but this intense period of kind of always worrying about your life and the lives of people close to you. I think we can all say, with a lot of experience behind us now, that that is a constant stressor.
mhm,
And, like my daughter referred to something like, um, you know, it was something about going to school. It was something about like, and you can't do that at school. You can't do that at school. She hasn't been to school for a year and a half. Like she
mhm,
literally had her last day of physical school on March 13th, 2020. And it's still the norm. That's still the norm for her.
mhm,
She refers to that as like, like she knows that's not the way things are. And
mhm,
she knows that that's kind of for an indefinite period. Like we're virtual. We made the choice to go virtual this for the time being. And nobody is enjoying it, but we feel safer that way because I do have a chronic condition. So, but all of us still feel, and like, remember at the beginning of this, it was like, oh, we're going to have normal, but it's going to be the new normal.
mhm,
And like now we're almost a year in, and it's like, wow, this, like, there was a really good quote, actually. I was doing my research into the Troubles as well, so that I actually knew something about it. um and there was something from the Irish Times, like a timeline of the beginning of the Troubles. And there's like just hours and hours and hours of riots on this street. And somebody said, it's then you get the feeling that the earth has moved under you and nothing
Mm-hmm.
will ever be the same again. And it's like, and that's, I think that there really is for me a tie-in between, the stress of this and what I imagine the stress of the troubles were like. And I actually asked my husband, like, I did kind of a survey, like, which
Mm-hmm.
would you prefer, like 30 years of fighting or a pandemic? Um, like this. And my husband was like, 30 years, 30 years. And I don't know. I don't know which would be better. But I said that's I can't like I said I don't know which. And he said, at least you could see your family and friends, like you weren't always worried about like the immediacy.
Mm. I think it would depend because even in this current situation, it varies from state to state, from area to area, because, I'm experiencing this pandemic with everyone else, but I wouldn't say that I'm fearful or apprehensive. Um, and I think the fact that I've been able to still, come into work, go out for walks, especially when the weather was a lot warmer,
Hmm.
it helped tremendously because I was able to get fresh air. I'm going for walks. I'm
Yeah.
occupying my mind with something else. I have books.
Right.
I do have my immediate family with me. I have some
Right.
form of entertainment. So I can't say that I'm feeling the stress. At least for me,
Yeah.
I don't feel that way.
Well,
I
it
do
does.
have,
Oop, sorry, go ahead.
no, I mean, I do have family that for them, the situation has been very stressful. My family in Sicily, because they had a very serious lockdown,
Hmm.
where they could only go out if it was necessary to step out their door, to a point where when that was lifted, some of my aunts almost had this fear that they didn't even want to step out, even though they could. I have an aunt in the Bronx who has cancer, or she's recovering from it, and her thing is, do I take the vaccine or not?
Hmm.
So
Right.
for some of my family, these are immediate concerns,
Yeah.
but for others, not as much. But honestly, if I had to choose between a pandemic and the threat of war and bombings, and I think I would choose a pandemic if I
Right.
really had to get down to it. Um, but I mean, I was watching this video from 2018, and there was the Orange Order was marching,
Hmm.
and there still was that fear. They had a
Right.
heavy police presence,
A giant wall.
yeah, to
Yeah.
maintain order.
Hmm.
Some of the fear was the mix of alcohol and the marching, that could, cause more problems. And I was thinking, even in 2018, while there is a peace, these tensions haven't gone away.
Right.
Um, and I can't imagine what that's like, where, well, if you're in this area, you better be careful if you're Protestant. Well, if you're in this area, you better be careful if you're Catholic. Like,
Right.
I can't imagine how that would be. And one of the women that was being interviewed in the program, her daughter started crying because that's
I
how
know.
terrified she was.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
mother had to assure her, they're not going to hurt you. Nothing is going to happen to you. And I'm
Right.
like, this was in 2018.
Right. Well, that's an interesting thing because for those of us with kids in this,
Mm-hmm.
it's the same thing. And, like we had to kind of explain, like not like, well, if mommy gets sick, she's gonna die. But like I have fairly severe asthma though, and
Mm-hmm.
it would not be really super fun for me to get this. And I might wind up in the hospital, and I don't want that at all.
Mm-hmm.
But we discussed going hybrid with her when she was really having a hard time doing virtual, and she said, like, I don't want to make you sick.
Mm.
You know, like, so everyone's carrying the bomb during this pandemic. If it's
Mm-hmm.
affecting, you know, like for those of us that are like immunosuppressed or have chronic
Mm-hmm.
conditions, like, and we're
Mm-hmm.
just staying in, and like my mom is in her 70s, and also like has some stuff that would not make this like a fun thing for her. um,
Mm-hmm.
I haven't I haven't been indoors with my mom. I haven't hugged my mom, and it's coming on a year.
Mm.
And you know, so I kind of think like I not that I think that living in Northern Ireland during the Troubles was any fun,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm gonna stress that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, I would like to hug my mom.
No, and I think it varies from individual to individual. And
Right.
I know, based on like forums that I'm on where, different people talk, like depending on what part of the country they're living in, or even foreign people on my site, for them it's tremendously hard.
Mhm.
So like I don't negate that,
Oh
because I
gosh,
mean
no, I didn't think so.
I'm fortunate that I have my family around me. So I'm very fortunate, because I know for other people it's very emotionally taxing, mentally taxing, that
Right.
you don't have that physical contact, that for many of us, we can't physically go into work. Many of us have lost our jobs because of this. It just, I
Yeah.
think it would be like an individual thing. I mean, honestly, I, I, I don't know. Like I couldn't imagine it. Like I had family who lived through World War II,
Hmm.
and the stress of that, and I can't imagine what that was like, the fear of being bombed, having to
Hmm.
provide for your family,
Right.
food
Right.
shortages, I don't know. Either
Yeah.
way, it's not ideal.
No. It's just an interesting thing to, you know, like I was just thinking about it a lot during watching this. And
Mm-hmm.
just like how you know, like their lives are unrecognizable from how they would have been. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like that there are checkpoints everywhere, and that
Mm-hmm.
the army can get on the bus and no one bats an eye. Like, no, like James is like, there are soldiers on the bus, and they're like, yeah. And then
Yeah.
and he's like, why? I'm like, I don't know. Like,
That's what it felt like during 9/11,
right, exactly.
when I used to go to the train station and I would see soldiers, and it was almost like, oh, a soldier's here. You know,
Hmm.
Sadly, you become so desensitized where it's, if that is your normal. Like I remember
Right.
my dad read, there was this photographer, and I believe he was in Iraq, and he lifted a camera, and a little girl thought he had a gun, and she raised
Oh,
her hands. And
yeah.
he snapped that photo. He says, but my heart broke, because I didn't realize she thought that he was aiming a gun at her. So, for a lot of people, that is a sad, unfortunate reality that they experience. And you can't imagine that the toll that it will take on you. You're never
Right.
the same
Right.
person,
Yeah.
you know. But amazingly, I think what helps these characters in this show is that they have such strong bonds of friendship. And even James, who sort of starts off as the, like, I felt so sorry for James, because he sort of becomes not the punching bag, but because he's English, it's like
Right.
he's the one where you can sort of vent. Like I
He's
love, there's a
behind
moment,
enemy lines. Yeah. He
exactly, like I like the scene when they're cramming for the exams, and I think he mentions, I can't keep which revolt straight in my head, and Melissa says, well, if your lot had stopped invading us for 5 minutes, we wouldn't have to like discuss this. And like he has this
Is that
look on his
Michelle?
face. Yeah, Michelle
Sorry.
says that, like, if
Yeah.
your lot would have stopped invading us for like 5 minutes. So like he is that source. Like even his aunt, when she says, I hate to admit it, but when I look at him, it borders on hatred. And it's done in a humorous way, but when you
Right,
think about
right,
it, that's his own aunt, which is admitting to the fact that because he's English, by no choice of his own, like he didn't choose,
right.
this is where I want to be born. There is that element where he is, I mean, I wonder if she
He,
really hated him. I mean, I don't think she hated him,
well, it's the
but
representation. It's
yeah,
what he brings up with his British accent. It's like
yeah,
the emotions that you feel when you see somebody who is like, the people going onto your bus, like the people that are in obvious control,
mm-hmm,
exercising that control. And then you've got somebody in the house
yeah.
that sounds the same. That would be a conflict. That would be a very conflicted emotional issue for me.
Yeah, and I like how, like, because one of the issues discussed, although it's sort of briefly discussed, is when Claire, yes,
I love
when
Claire.
when Claire comes out, and I liked how it didn't drag out, like the
Mm-hmm.
that her friends eventually, like after they got over the initial shock, that they decided it doesn't matter,
Mm-hmm.
you belong to us,
Right.
and I love that moment, when Claire realizes that she matters to her friends, she's acknowledged, and it seems as if, I'm sure she told James, because the scene that I'm thinking of, she's sitting next to James, so I'm
Yeah.
assuming she must have told him, and he was probably the one more, like, not more accepting,
Right.
probably didn't give much of a thought behind it.
Yeah. I don't think he thought it was a thing, because
No, but
the
I like how
Protestants
he's
don't
always
have
thought
the
of being
same.
gay.
Right. That's true. But I mean, I don't think that Protestants have the same view of, LGBTQ lifestyles as
Depends.
Catholics. Okay. I have,
Depends.
as a Jew, I am speaking with absolutely no knowledge other than what I see on TV and read about. So, yeah, no, of course, there's a variation. But he also came from probably like I don't know where they say he came from, but that might have also, they might have had gay people there.
Yeah, and I think also Ireland has always been extremely devout.
Hmm.
Um, so like, so that didn't necessarily surprise me. And also they're from, in London, Derry, I'm supposed to assume it's supposed to be a small town. It's not a city, is it?
It is.
It is a city. Okay.
It's not like, I mean, I think what's the town? There's another town nearby, like a city
Oh, okay.
nearby. I don't remember. That's the one in. Yeah, I don't know. I'm done. I can't remember. This is the problem about recording on Fridays. Like, I'm in a better mood, but I don't think as well. So
It's a delicate
it
balance.
really is.
Yeah, but and it was so funny because from the get-go, his sexuality is assumed, and that's something that he, I don't want to say battles, that's a bit extreme. But even in the second season, that's still very much the case. And I was trying to figure out where that comes from. Like I was trying to pinpoint one bit, and oh yeah, he's my gay
I think
cousin,
it's
but he just
the
doesn't want to admit it.
I think it's the accent.
Oh, okay.
I think it's the accent. And can we just, when we're discussing James, can we just discuss the principal and how I I am like the head of her fan club. Like
She's
she
I love that character. Oh my Lord. There wasn't one moment, like I found a GIF that someone had put up where she says, and if you ever should, paraphrasing, feel the need to talk, just don't come to me. And then she just like moves on. But what I love about her is that it sort of subverts the trope because she's a Catholic nun.
Mhm.
And while she definitely has her beliefs, what I loved about it is that she never comes off as closed-minded. I mean, yes, she is a religious figure. She has her beliefs, but I didn't find her as like the stereotypical nun, like
No.
hellfire and brimstone sort of
Right.
nun.
Just super
Um,
sarcastic
yeah, like
and
it's almost like, and I like how, I don't know if she mentions this in the first season or in the second season. It's probably the second season, so I don't want to spoil it. I don't know how far you got along, but she talks about why she became a nun. But
oh, I can't wait.
yeah, yeah. So she's just as great in the second season as she is in the first season. But I really loved her character because
That's the
like
best part.
And even the priest that comes in, I'm going to call her Mr. Sexy Priest. Like, I love when he's
Or just
introduced.
the hair. We can.
Yeah, it's the slow-mo and like he's brushing his,
Yeah.
and I love how she's just having these epic eye rolls, like, oh my.
I know. I know. She hates him so ecstatically, and it's fantastic. Like
Oh
every
my
time
Lord.
he's there. Um, but it does remember in the season finale, actually, they were trying to publish this anonymous post that we find out is from Claire about being a lesbian.
Mm-hmm.
And did I say post? Really? A letter, because it's in the 90s. A
Mm-hmm.
letter. Um, but she doesn't, she says we can't print this. And then
Mm-hmm.
they're like, where, they decide to do it anyway, and she is obviously super happy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um,
because she's sort of like, this is the party line. This is what I have to say, but this is what I believe.
right.
And it's almost like, I've told you, now whatever you do is up to you. So basically, I think she feels like this is what I have to say,
Right.
but do what thou will,
Right.
because if she was really concerned, she could have put a stop to it immediately.
Yeah.
That's
Or
why I really
suspended
love
them
her.
after.
Exactly. That's why I really appreciate her character, because she is someone who's devout, and you can be devout without being hateful and, spiteful, which is, I think sometimes in our media that balance doesn't exist. So like, I really appreciate her character, and a lot of the characters, even the other nun, which, bless her soul, the one that dies when they're in detention.
Oh my God. Oh my God. If I ever need to smile, I just watch that, because I mean, from like, I am not a producer or anything, but the fact that everybody wanted something, and like the principal walks in, James is peeing in the garbage can, Aaron's leaving, Orla's holding the dead nun's head,
Yeah.
Michelle is picking through the pocket, and Claire is eating her sandwich.
Yeah.
It was truly magnificent. It was like a piece of art. If I could frame it, I would.
It was, that's why I love this show. There isn't one moment where you're not laughing. I wouldn't say I crying necessarily. I meant the
Yeah.
the end scene where the girls are doing their aerobics, and then you see the footage of the bombing that's killed 12 people. I loved how those scenes were playing one after another, because it shows that there's innocence even in the midst of all this violence, and how the girls are still able to hold on to that innocence in spite of what is happening.
Right. And also, I mean, they're also ignorant.
Mm-hmm.
As of that point, the news
Mm-hmm.
hasn't hit. Like, can you imagine these days in a high
Yeah.
school, somebody's doing step aerobics and somebody stands up and is like, there's been a bomb. Like, that
Yeah.
would be immediate. And like, I grew up around that age. Like, I was in the early 90s, I was in high school. And that immediate information wasn't there. That
Mm-hmm.
nobody was looking at their cell phones in
Mm-hmm.
class. Like, nobody, like, the biggest thing you could sneak in was like your coffee, uh or your chocolate bar. Like, there was not this constant influx of everything that we have now.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
oh, go. And so, like, just that they're dancing
Mm-hmm.
like happy, like little kids, and that ignorance is bliss kind of feeling.
Mm-hmm. No, and that's why I love that scene. I also love, Mary's father comes and he puts his hand on Jerry, yeah,
Yeah.
Jerry Schultz's shoulder, because for most of the first season, there's like Jerry and his father-in-law are like, and what I admire is that Jerry takes a lot of that. Like the father-in-law has zero respect for him, but it's like he grits his teeth and he just like moves forward.
Right.
Um, but I loved that moment where the father like puts aside, you know, I may not like you, but you're my son-in-law and this has happened and we're family. And like even the thought of like they have a baby girl, like an infant
Mm-hmm.
that the mother is holding, and like the fear that she must have for that little girl,
Right. Is
you
this going to
know.
be forever? What is this girl going to grow up in? And,
Yeah.
is it always going to be the same? And I don't know. This is probably actually the second season when they go to the concert.
Yes. Yes.
That was a great episode.
That episode was gold.
Yeah. But um, and it was funny because like I was watching it like on I think my phone, and like my daughter was in the room, and I'm just like laughing out loud.
Mm-hmm.
When they're like being all like sanctimonious about the travelers. They're not ghosts,
Yes.
they're travelers.
Yes.
And
And I
then
like he says, but we like Gypsy too. And Michelle goes, you see, I told you.
right. And then like this drunk lady like just like swerves in, and they're like, that's better than these people that found my wallet because of their image.
Yeah, yeah, but but I love the scene where they're being chased because I was like, why are they chasing? It was like, oh my God. It's like, why
Right.
are you chasing us? It's just like you dropped your wallet. But
Right.
then again, they did kind of seem on the verge of
Right.
like the travelers all having a nervous breakdown. So like even if you're just returning a wallet, you're kind of a little, yeah, but
Yeah,
I
he looked a
love the
little twitchy.
reference to Take That because I remember Take That. They were called Take That, right?
Yes.
The group that, because my cousin who lived in Sicily, I remember he was talking to my mom on the phone. He goes, oh, do you know about Take That? So like I never really listened to any of their music, but like it kind of was fun because I remember my cousin loved them.
Oh,
And
that's so funny.
I loved that they set the show in the 90s because a lot of this works because you mentioned before about, you know, if this was set now, they all would have had their cell phones, you know. So you're able to keep that innocence because it's set at a time when technology wasn't as pervasive. Like even when I was going to high school, I went in the 2000s. A lot of people still didn't have phones all over the place. Like when you were in class, I don't recall if anyone was really staring at their phones
Hmm.
when I was in high school.
Yeah,
Um,
well, I mean, why would you? Like there weren't smartphones. There were like,
yeah,
there
like the
were like
flip, I still
palm
had the flip
pilots
phone.
and clamshells, and there wasn't
Yeah.
like a whole lot you could do.
Yeah, I remember I found out about 9/11 was I went into gym. Oh, I was in gym and my teacher said, I have some news. And she said, you know, the towers were hit. That's how I found out about it.
Hmm.
And then afterwards, like I remember we all had this assembly where all the school was gathered and they gave us a time to talk about your feelings. How do you feel about this? And this one girl started singing Amazing Grace. And of course, I lost it. I just started crying. You know, like everyone started crying. But I remember then when I was in the car with my family, my father says, you know, the towers went down. And I remember thinking, well, what does this mean? And then going home and seeing those images. And I think now, or as you said, now technology is so pervasive that, you know, you find things out so quickly that you sometimes may not even have time to process what you're even finding out, you know. So I like that they said it during this time, because I think that level of innocence is still able to be maintained, if that makes any sense, because no one is holding out their smartphone to say, oh, you know,
Right.
this happened. But I thought going back to that scene, it was very beautifully done, where you have like that tragedy of the bombing and you have the pure joy that the girls and James are experiencing while they're dancing on stage. So
Hmm.
I loved it. That was a brilliant
Right.
end to a really fantastic first season. So
Yeah.
I really
But
enjoyed it.
to talk about we got off on our tangent about Take That because it was just such a fantastic episode. Oh my gosh. Um, but at the beginning, they're talking about like there's a bomb, like there's something happening, there's terrorist activity somewhere. It's Belfast.
Okay,
Belfast.
Belfast.
Belfast. Uh, somewhere there, and they're like, well, we just won't go there. And they're and Mary's like, okay, fine. But then like an escaped bear, like on the opposite side of town,
Mhm.
that's what does it. Because I mean, Mary was going probably to her own concerts during
Mhm.
bomb scares in her like that's what they're used to. A polar
Mhm.
bear, on the other hand, is scary, you
Yeah,
know?
and I think that also illustrates how when your mind is so affected by violence, how you sort of make molehills into mountains, because you think about it like the polar bear. Well, what's the chance that you'll encounter the polar bear? And I like how Jerry's trying to say, like, I doubt the polar bear is going to want to come here. And Mary was like, you never know. Polar bears are smart. Lock the doors. So it's funny, but at the same time, you realize these are people that are experiencing trauma where it's like they could have spoken about an escaped chimpanzee and they would have had
Right.
the same amount of.
Right.
But I like how the
And
girls are like, but it's not going to be in Belfast, because they
right,
really
right.
want to go to that concert.
And
It's going to be
I just
there.
have to say, like the connections that they make, those bringbacks throughout all of the shows. Like the
Mm-hmm.
ensemble is fantastic. And and that they keep like, the the sheep that the van hit turns out to be where they found the polar bear because it was eating the sheep.
Yes.
And like it's so easy to miss those things if you're not paying
Mm-hmm.
attention, but they're
Mm-hmm.
so worth it. Oh,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
um I do want to talk about religion,
Mm-hmm.
because frankly I'm a little surprised that, I mean, I know that like humor is humor, but th- that a dog peed on the Virgin Mary statue.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
was That was a little like, I mean, I was howling because I mean it was just so bad. It was and Erin was trying to tell them and they're all like, it's a miracle. And she knows it's just dog pee. And
yeah.
but I mean, these were released in Ireland first. And I
Yeah.
was surprised that that got through.
Yeah. I mean, I think also it's because, yeah, with regards to certain things, although I'm not necessarily as religious as I was when I was younger. It's funny. I was able to watch that scene, and it didn't even register like what you're mentioning, the fact that it's supposed to be urine on the Virgin Mary statue. But I remember I've had problems where I was watching a movie and they took the crucifix and dumped it in the toilet, and I was like, and I was telling her like, do you think they really put it in there, or even the scene where in Gangs of New York, the main character tosses a Bible and you see the folks on the Bible sinking into the water.
Yeah.
And I'm like, did they really toss a Bible in the water? Because for me, it's a sacred text. So I'm like, did
Right.
they really do that? But I also think that sometimes in the West, when it comes to Christianity, certain things are considered more permissible, and I think not as big of a stink is made about it versus if you were to touch other sacred icons of other religions, you might get a bit more. I remember
Right.
years ago when they had that exhibit where they had a crucifix and urine and they had feces, fecal matter on the Virgin Mary. And I remember I was like, that's going too far. And I know that I think there were people that were extremely offended by it. There were
Yeah.
people that were offended by was it the Met Gala, where it was all about religious iconography. So there was like celebrities dressed like as a pope, and there were some other, and I think there were people that said, my religion is not your costume. So there were people that were very vocal about like, I don't appreciate this. In
Mhm.
Ireland, I think things are becoming more, I think, secular.
Yeah.
I think the fact that they legalized abortion was a huge step in Ireland, and I think it's already showing that people are starting to move away from that extreme religiosity.
Mhm.
But I don't know, it's like, I'm curious. I didn't, in the articles that I read about it, I think most people were just satisfied with the portrayal of the time period.
Mhm.
And there was a woman who was of Irish descent then, she asked her family who lived during that time and they said that they appreciated the portrayal.
Yeah, I
Now the
read a lot
humor
about
didn't,
that too.
yeah, and the humor didn't bother them because, you know, one could almost argue, oh, you're belittling this experience, but I think you need humor. I think if the
Right, right.
show were just showing explosions and people dying and cards, you couldn't get through it, you know. So I
Right,
think
right.
humor is needed, and even during these times of hardship, people still need humor. You need
Right.
to get through it. It's not that you're making light of a situation necessarily, but as a human being, you need your mind to focus on other things.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't even think about the whole urine on the Virgin Mary. I just remember laughing because the fact that Erin looks up and you just see the dripping, she's like, oh, you know, like she's torn between, I don't want to ruin this for my friends, but at the same
Right.
time, it's dog pee.
It's dog pee. Um, well, I mean, I think that it's kind of the just the tone that the whole show takes. It's like me and my friends ragging on my high school versus like someone else ragging on my high school. And you know, I am in my 40s and I've become a lot more aware that the people that are proposing shows are like my age and they're proposing shows for my aged people. So,
Yeah.
you know, for exactly that audience, you know, so I feel like the people that have been through it and did grow up during that time period really feels like identified, and like those shared experiences are really great for them.
And I think also like even like I don't know how much of the viewership for this particular show is our age demographic. I don't know if there are younger people watching the show, but I think even if it's set in a time where most teens today, like you know, there's no cell phones, you know, I think the themes that it's discussing, adolescence, academic pressures, you know,
Coming out.
it's yeah, it's relatable regardless of what age like you went to high school. You know, these are all things that we've all experienced to one degree or another, or someone that we know
Right.
experienced. So
Yeah.
I think even though it's set in the 90s, I think it's still the themes are universal. You know, I don't
Definitely.
think it's like this is just limited, you know, to like a certain time. It's like because all of these girls, like I love all of them. They're all trying to find their own voice and assert themselves. And
Except for Orla.
except, yeah, except I think Orla has her own voice. I think she
I
knows who she
I
is.
adore her.
I love when she finds out that Claire's
Graphic.
a lesbian. Yeah, and she
Go
says,
on.
I I I don't think I believe in lesbians. She was like, what do they eat? You know, it's like, that would be the thought in her head. It's like, what do they eat? Like I love that moment. She's at the breakfast table. She was like, what do lesbians eat? And
Yeah.
it's just so funny. It's like I don't think I believe in them. Or it's just,
Yeah. I mean, I wish we had like another like hour because, you know, just all of the relationships are just delightful. And
yeah,
there's so much to pick apart.
yeah. Even Michelle with James is another relationship where it's like because she tries so hard to say I don't care about him. Like even when they think that the travelers have like abducted, she was like, who cares? This is take that. You know, this is a once in a lifetime thing. You know, whatever. But she ends up still. She goes back and she's like, oh, you see,
Well,
I
he has the
told you it was
tickets.
okay.
He has the
Yes, he has
tickets.
the
They can't.
yeah.
They
So it's
can't
like
get into the concert without him.
yeah. So I love that. It's like that's the deal breaker. Like he has the tickets. But yeah, like their relationship is fantastic because there's that constant back and forth. And I love the scene where they have that new English teacher who's, you know, supposed to revolutionize everything.
It's Dead Poets Society.
Yeah, and they're like, and she's having them like knock. What are they
Cricket
knocking?
bats. Yeah,
Cricket bat. And
cricket.
she was like, you know, think of something you hate. And I like how he says the fact that people say we for things that aren't even small. Like he hits the thing. And what's Orla's? Does she say like I hate my socks?
Yeah,
What
something like that.
yeah, like I hate my socks. And it's just like what all of them, and I think Claire is something that's academic related and she like hits the ball or whatever. And, and I like also with Erin that I don't know if Erin says like prejudice as she talks
Yeah.
to Michelle. I don't even know what Michelle says, but I'm sure it's like, it goes with her personality.
Right.
It's just so
Drugs and
drugs.
sex. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay. Let's wrap up because we could
sure.
probably do like an episode 3, 4, and 5, like the Bridgertons. We got a lot to talk about.
Well, it's amazing how in 6 episodes there's so much to unpack. It's such a short show, but it's I'll conclude by saying definitely watch it. The first 2 seasons are available. And I think they're definitely worth the watch. They're really fantastic. Every character is great, whether they're major or minor. It's a really great show. So yeah, watch it if you haven't already watched it.
Yeah. And also, I would add, um, definitely have fried foods for one of the episodes. You'll know which. You'll
Oh
want it.
yes, yes.
All right.
Well, thank you everyone for spending time with us again, and we look forward to talking with you next episode. So everyone stay safe and be well.
Take care.
Bye everyone.
Bye.